these ladies to say, in your own words, what does it look like when we're talking about helping somebody with their wedding, when you're actually already booked? What does your workflow look like? And we kind of let us know. What is it? What do you do? How do you do?
Since I'm right here.
Yeah.
Well, one of the most important things is to try and find out what the bride and groom really are looking for. Like, to start to kind of get to know them as a person, to get to know their personality. The more that you feel comfortable with them, and more importantly, that they can feel comfortable with, at least, you know, in my own experience as a vendor, when they're comfortable with me, they'll be more comfortable to really kind of let their hair down, talk about what are the things that they're looking forward to most, kind of what are their dreams, what's the vision that they had. And sometimes there's this challenge, especially for brides, there's this challenge between the vision you have and then the vision your mama has. and the budget, right? So you're trying to like respect your parents and you're trying to like make them like happy with this wonderful occasion, but then you're like, I had an idea of what I wanted this to be, and I kind of have been picturing this for a lot of years. So the more that they can feel comfortable with me to kind of like really tell me what's deep in their heart and what vision they have for their day, the more that I'm able to help them make that happen and to even translate that to other family members who become blockades. Because that happens. I mean, it happened to me. Like, I remember when I got married, that was a challenge. But like, as long as you work well with your vendor and you like feel comfortable with them, you'll express yourself in ways that you don't even understand, and that will help, you know, get the vision along and get it actually happening.
So I know I heard you say, Fanny, about the budget. Yes, yeah, no, it is on. It's definitely on. You could speak a little louder, but it's definitely working. So I know, Fanny, you said something about the budget. Tell us, you know, what's kind of the hardship on the budget side?
Well,
I don't even.
well, first I think that not everyone booked a florist. Oh, one of the first.
I think, you know, for what I do, sometimes I start with couples. Okay, sometimes I start with couples from the very start, from the save the dates. I design custom invitations and I do calligraphy. You see some of it around, and there are actually a lot of items that you know, could possibly be part of your wedding. You know, your stationery items, decor items, and so that's what I help my couples organize. We start with a checklist of all the possible things, you know, that you could possibly want, and I give them an estimate, and then we go from there, you know. And sometimes they'll cut things out, sometimes, you know, along the road they'll add things, but, you know, budget's definitely something that, you know, comes into play with what I do too. Certain brides are really adamant about having certain types of invitations, certain kinds of paper. Others don't want to spend the money there. So, you know, it just depends on what your priorities are. The couples I work with really feel all these little special touches are important. The little favor tags or place cards, escort cards, mirrors, and they do definitely add something to, you know, to the whole reception. So.
It's actually a good point about the priorities. I think when you're deciding on your budget, again, like you've got a number, if you're working with somebody or trying to figure out where that money is going to go, one of the ways that I help people do that is tell me what's important to you about this day. Like, list them out. And here's the thing, the kicker is like everything can't be as important. Like, it can't be as important that you have this venue at this budget with this number of people, right? Like one of those factors has to be more important to you. Well, which is it? And so I do have people rank the things that they think are important to them, right? And go ahead, talk to your fiance and just decide, like, what's the thing that would make my day awesome? Is it the people? Is it the food? Is it the place? Is it the music? Is it the decor? Is it the flowers? There are a lot of different options. There are definitely many different things, but it's kind of just trying to figure out amongst you and your fiance, like, what those things are. And, you know, to that point, like, part of it is if you know what your plan is, everybody else will be really good with that. Like, you can, like, if you don't have the plan, and, you know, to your point, Florence, before about if we've got parents that have a vision and you don't know what you want, like you haven't decided that part, it's a lot easier to have everybody kind of fall in line there and just do what everybody else is asking you to do, as opposed to I know what I want, I know what I'm doing, I know why I'm doing it, I know what all these factors are, and then it just makes it really easy to just kind of plan it out that way.
I think also just that point brings up why it's so important when you're working with, like, for instance, if you're working with a planner, like we'll touch on later on the difference between a planner and designer, but also the fact that it means that you have somebody who has an idea of a team, like a team that can be recreated in different ways. So it's not as if a planner will always work with exactly the same makeup artist or the same hairstylists or the same calligraphers or even the same florists. But the thing is, this is kind of like the spoke of a wheel that has all of these different parts and has all of these other connections. And so once your vision is kind of like clicked into place, we'll be able to say, you know what? I can assemble the exact team that's going to help you get this done. From, like you wanted this wedding that has, this, I don't know, mid-century modern look or something like that. And she'll be like, not that that's like necessarily like Monica's thing, but just for example purposes, like Monica is amazing at doing this. I'm giving her a goal. She's on your list. And then, like this is the kind of font that you kind of like. This is like all the things you're showing me kind of come up with this stuff. I already have somebody who does this kind of lettering. Jen, calling you up. Like Danny, does flowers in this type all the time. I've seen this before. She's worked on it now. Like you've got this one person, instead of you running out and hoping that the person who's advertised actually does what they say they do, you have somebody who actually knows. Yeah, they do this. I've seen it. I've worked with them. I'm bringing your team together. Let's do this.
In the same way, with what I do, lettering is so popular now. It's in every bridal magazine and all over Pinterest. And there are a lot of people doing signage and menus and all these different items for your day. And there's a lot of people offering things on Etsy. There's so many choices out there, just for invitations alone. I mean, there are so many websites out there at all different levels, what you can choose. But, if you work with someone that's local, I find that this way I kind of take a lot of weight off the bride's shoulders. I find the printer that's in their budget. I have printers that I work with all the time. I know what I'm going to get. I have paper that I show the couples. It's not just a guess, what am I going to get. And you know that there's going to be follow-through. A lot of times people come to me after they've ordered something on Etsy and it falls through. I mean, that's not always the case, but, or they got their invitations from a website and they're really not what they wanted. So, it all, again, it depends on your budget. It depends on your patience level. Some people will come to me because they don't want to have to navigate all those sites. And there's a lot of beautiful invitations online, but sometimes it takes a lot of time and effort to get through it, personalize everything, make sure you're getting it on time. I mean, time is a big thing. One of the first things I do when I begin working with a couple is I do a timeline, and we really stick to it. When we want to have the invitations to the printer, when they're going to be mailed, when they're going to be addressed. So with what I do, I sort of help the couples just keep all of that organized. They don't have to think about ordering and approve. I do that all for them. So that's just some of the service that I offer.
Which, I mean, again, a lot of that is to help make it easier for them, right? Like there's so many pieces. And that was kind of the point that I was alluding to before. Like when you start, I've got to do this part. I've got to get my venue. I've got to book all my vendors. Who are all the vendors? Okay, let's, once we figure that part out. But then after that, like there are all these things that have to actually happen so that we can get to the wedding day. Monica, from your perspective, like how do you work with your clients once they've booked you?
Well, me and my clients sort of become best friends. So like we text, we talk on the phone, we FaceTime. It's just really getting personal, getting to know what the bride wants on her special day. Because you don't want to give her a look and then she has these pictures that she's looking back on 5 years from now and she's just like, wow, I look crazy, So from day one when, they decide to call or inquire about anything, I just, get to know them on a personal level. And, we set dates, we do trials, and, if you want to continue, we go on. Most of the time it's them and their bridesmaids. So for the day of, I like to do like an itinerary. So no one's like, oh, am I next? Am I next? Am I next? So that day of, there's no stress on the bride. So she's not looking for a bridesmaid like, oh, where are you? Your makeup, it's time to do your makeup. So that's the way I like to do things.
Like, at what point do you suggest that brides find the makeup artist? Because I can see how, like, just like flowers, people tend to go through so much of the planning, and then it's like, oh yeah, we don't have somebody to do makeup. So at what point should they, start looking it up, start working with you?
I would say about a year in advance, only because a lot of brides have their weddings around the same time. And it's really hard to say, oh, I'm going to hold this day for you. And then someone else was like, oh, I'm getting married this day. And now it's a conflict. So it's the sooner you know and you let me know, then we can work together on that date.
And the more time we have to change pictures and FaceTime, I've become friends with all my brides too.
Me too.
And you better book with me because after we are friends on Facebook.
I like that.
So I have to tell you one example regarding. So I just have to tell you an example that happened to me regarding flowers. So a bride came to me, and I have to tell you that once you connect with that florist, you stick with her or with him, because it is, we kind of, well, talking about me, I kind of like to spend time with you and know everything that happens to your wedding. I don't charge for ideas for the place card or here and there. And I like to get involved in everything else, even though I only do the flowers. But then this bride came to me and she told me all her dreams, everything she wanted. She wanted an arch. There was a pergola at the venue. And I went there an hour away from my studio, and I measured and I gave her an estimate of everything she wanted. She wanted white flowers and all greens all around the pergola. So that was my price. And then after a while, when she got back to me saying she wasn't booking with me, and I'm like devastated. I liked her so much. And then I'm like, can you tell me why? And she's like, oh, your arch was very expensive. And I'm like, but I just priced what you asked for. I can give you other ideas. Oh, no, I don't want other ideas. I've already found someone else. And I'm like, but you didn't even give me a chance. So the wedding happened last week. She's my friend on Facebook. So I went to check it, and it's totally different of what she told me she wanted. She wanted all around, and the picture is just one arrangement on the center of the pergola. That's it. So that's why it was a lot less. That explains. But we are still friends on Facebook, and I congratulate her. But so it is possible to have a budget, a wedding on a budget. My wedding was on a budget. And it is, as I said before, without me knowing what is your budget, I can show you what you can do. And you showed me that look on Pinterest, and I'm going to show you what we can do with your budget. That's the best way to do it.
I think I think that's the hard part, right? Because I really do invest in my clients, because I want what you want, right? I want you to be happy with your day. I need you to see it. And honestly, like, the reason I got into it was so that I could help people kind of chill on their day, right? I've seen so many brides, and I always feel so bad. Like, they're so stressed. And so, like, I don't know what's happening, nothing's going right. And I was like, no, guys, you spent too much money. Like, you spent too much money not to be, like, partying. And that's really my goal, is just to try and get you to have some fun, right? Like have a good time. Now, if you don't like to have a good time, I'm probably not your girl. Like, like if you really want to go to the wedding and be stressed about it, I don't get it, but I respect it, right? Like, it's kind of your deal. But I just really feel like get to know your vendors, get to know who they are, make sure that they're not strangers on the day of. And that's just kind of how I operate, like just trying to make sure we get to know. So yes, you can friend them on Facebook. It does hurt a little bit. It'll sting a little bit if you decide to go somewhere else. But, again, like you got to be happy with your choices too. So you got to make the choice that makes the most sense for you. Do your homework for sure and make sure that what you're getting is what you think you're getting. We've had some talks about contracts. I've got a few in the room who know about the contract situations. Like I read them all for my clients. I make sure that I go line by line and check everything to make sure that what you think you're getting is what you're getting, and that we've got all our I's dotted and our T's crossed. There are vendors that are not necessarily looking out for your best interest. So read them, please. Like, do read your contracts. It's important. Just so that you have an understanding of exactly what's going on and what's happening. Where we again? Yeah.
Helpful tip. Yeah. When you are going to meet with whichever vendor and you're going to sign the contract, not only should you read through it carefully, have a second pair of eyes. Second, even a third if you must, because sometimes you are so excited to work with this person because you've seen their book or you've gone through that you're almost like, I don't care what's in there. Like, yeah, I'm reading it. But like it could say something glaring, like, something ridiculous, and you're going to sign off on it because you're just like, I don't think I'm ever going to find anybody just as good as this, so I better go with it. Read through it and have, again, I'm pointing at Monica. Not that Monica is like, have your tough butt friend who kind of takes no nonsense from anybody sitting next to you reading through it too. Just to be like, no, you know what? I don't like that. I don't know what's there. And I don't think that's like just that level of, because it's a big, it's an investment. Like, it's an investment. You want the day to go well. And you're not doing this that often. So hopefully it's only once. And if it's not the first time, maybe it's the second, maybe it's the third. Still, you want it to be good that moment. So, like, contracts, that's really important.
Yeah. I also just suggest that everybody actually get a contract. I have had people come to me who booked, I lose this in loose quotations, booked a vendor with no contract. No contract, no booking. Like there isn't, that is not how any professional would approach it. And so if you don't have a contract, chances are you're not dealing with a professional. So that's one of those things that I just make sure everybody's got. Like, if we've got a vendor, you've got a contract, we've got to sign, we understand what the agreement is, makes sense, just definitely be on the lookout for stuff like that. So really important. Just kind of side note tip on that one. Some of the other things that we were talking about, just kind of like the differences between a lot of the vendors. Is a calligrapher the same thing as just stationery? What do you think? Tell us.
Well, there are some calligraphers that just do calligraphy. They just do envelopes. They just do place cards or escort cards. That's just as a side note. It's something that actually even when I started, I always use the word place cards. But actually, place cards are just at the table. It's just a little side note. Right. Just around the table, if you want to tell your guests exactly where they're sitting at the table. The escort cards are like the folded cards you might have out at the cocktail hour.
Escort you to your seat.
Right, that have your table number on them. So just a little side note. But getting back to your question, some calligraphers just do calligraphy. Some stationery designers just do designing. They don't do calligraphy too. I actually do both. I do calligraphy and I do graphic design work. So I'm sort of a one-stop shop in that way. So, it depends. It depends. But I would say the majority of calligraphers out there are just calligraphers. They are. They might create calligraphy and work with another designer that goes into an invitation. But for the most part, a lot of the people like you'll see on Etsy, again, are just doing calligraphy.
So then we're gonna take this one between Fanny, myself, and Florence. We're gonna talk about the difference between a planner and a designer and a florist. Now, I'm not gonna ask for a show of hands or anything, but a lot of people that I've spoken to seem to think those are all the same thing. which I get, right? Like flowers are part of the decor. Planning is part design. These are actually different concepts. So part of what I do is really making sure that the wedding is going to work smoothly, making sure you have everything booked, that you know what you're getting, that you've got all your pieces locked down, that you have a timeline, that we know how things are rolling, that I have coordinated with all of your vendors to make sure that we've got all the pieces that you want. None of that is actual design work, though. So, from a design perspective, what does that look like?
From a design perspective, you need the planner because that person's going to make sure that essentially they will manage not only the day, they will manage the entire event from it, from it starting up until the moment it all ends. But the designer is different from the planner and also from the florist in that the florist is going to make amazing, floral arrangements, bouquets, different, whatever it is that involves flowers, greenery, that is them. But once it is there where it has to go, the putting of it in a specific place, if you have an idea of where you want it to go, that would be your designer. You have an idea of, for instance, the favors, and you're like, favors have to be put with, let's say, for instance, you want it with each place setting. That would be your designer that you've got to work with because the venue isn't necessarily going to put it there. The venue's job is to do your catering, to make sure that the plates they have in-house are there, the, what do you call it again, textiles that they have are there. But if you have an idea of, for instance, something special that you want, like a specific look, yes, that you've seen on Pinterest, right? Like that awesome sequined tablecloth, that's not necessarily going to be found in-house. That's something you're going to have to work with your designer to be like, where do we source these items? So the designer is going to work with you on what is the look of this set. So if you imagine, like if you have a theatrical, like if you go to the theater in Broadway, the director is going to work with the actors and actresses. But the set designer is the person that makes sure that when the actors and actresses come out, the place looks the way it's supposed to look. And that's what your event designer is going to do. So every element, whether it's candles, where the flowers go, where the stationery or whatever is written, whether it's on glass or whatever it is, as the event designer, it's our job to, or it would be my job, to work along with you to make sure that what you picture happens the way you pictured it.
That's good. I like that. What you pictured happens the way you pictured it. How about you, Fanny? Working with, or maybe not the thing that you think is going to actually happen once you've got it, right?
For me, it's like, for the bride, it's like, you can show me a picture that it looks good on this person, but it may not necessarily look good on you. So we'll tweak it to make it look good on you. So let's say you see a bright red lip. We try it on you, on the trial. It doesn't look so good, We'll line it, we'll make it look darker, but you'll still get that red that you want, but just not as bright or not as dark, if that makes any sense.
I was wondering, do you ever have moments where, like, you're able, like, let's say if you have a bride who comes in, who maybe that they're going through some skin issues, and they don't want to just mask it on that day. Do you sometimes have some tips or things that they could do weeks before the wedding to help?
Well, skincare is very important when it comes to makeup because you can have like flawless skin the entire time, trials and trials and trials, and then the day of, you're stressing and your skin, starts to look a little bad. But just make sure that you're taking care of your skin throughout this whole journey. So the day of your wedding, you're not stressed out and we have to mask and cover and cover. We want you to look like yourself, but the best version of yourself on that day. If that makes sense. Yeah.
That should be your line. That's like trademark right there.
Call that Monica special.
I have to write it down.
All right. Well, if there are any other last thoughts that we want to share with everybody, we're going to be hanging out for a while, so feel free to come ask us questions. Well, yep, I've got a question. Yes. Yeah, there are sometimes some people who do that. Like, it depends on what you do. You can't really do both at the same time. So again, usually they're calling in an assistant at the very least to do it. You can have a design factor kind of implemented for sure. Like they can definitely do the design for you. But on the day of the coordinating, what I have found is typically you don't do both well, right? So you might be to do both, to design and to plan. Yes, and I call in help, right? Like because like yeah, so I mean again, like my thing is like work to your strengths, right? Like so there are things that I know that I'm really good at, and I am really good at translating what people are asking for into real speak, right? And so I get both the vendor side and the client side. So I'm really good at crossing that bridge, right? So they asked, you said something, I want florals all around this thing, and I heard I want a centerpiece on the you know what I mean? Like, so, because I ask a lot of questions to make sure that we're getting actually what you think you're getting. And then I will translate it back for you, right? Like, here's what I heard you say. Yes. No, that's not what I meant. Okay, all right, let's try again and make sure that we got it. And then by that time, once I'm working with the designer or with the florist or, again, anybody in the on the vendor team, making sure that they actually understand what that vision looks like. So yes, there are people who do both. I don't. Again, when I say play to your strengths, I don't think I have ever met anybody who does both of them equally well, right? Like you can be a designer and a planner, not at the same time and not as effectively, because again, especially on that day of the event, like a lot of it is there's a lot of planning that has to happen. There are things that we got to make sure are happening, and your designer needs to be actually setting up and making sure that your layout and the space in the room looks a certain way. If you're planning, you actually have to be helping the bride and making sure that things are moving along according to plan. And so you really can't do both of those simultaneously. And they would never, yeah,
Right.
we just don't do that.
And just like as a case study, we've seen circumstances where there have been, and this, doesn't put anybody down. Just like Martine was saying, someone might want to be able to do both, but on that day you cannot be two people. And even if you have an assistant, your assistant can only assist what you are saying I need to have done. But if you can't be like, you know what, I've got to, like, there has to be an adjustment in anything. If you're the one who's also handling the planning side of it, you're not able to do any of that adjust. And you also can't just let your assistant take that responsibility because they're the assistant, right? So just as a case study, we recently worked on an event in which Martine was the planner. I was the designer. This was a circumstance in which it was a very DIY bride, do it yourself. So she had all of this stuff that she had planned. But the problem was, even if you've put together a lot of stuff, who is going to put that stuff where you need it to go? And who is going to be able to, in your family, stop, like, not be in pictures, not be there for the video, not be there for your family brunch, if you're the one who's running around doing the stuff? So it was really helpful for her that they didn't have to think about it. They had Martine kind of corralling them around nicely so that they weren't late for wherever it is that they had to be, and making sure everything was going smoothly. And then there was a team to make sure that it looked like what she had envisioned, what she had like put together in her mind. When she got there, she was like, this is what I saw. This is what I wanted. And she didn't have to stress out about it.
Don't apologize, no problem. That's what we're here for. I mean, again, I think it's more, I would say it's less the season and more the week of it all, right? Like one a week is max for me. There are some people who'll do both, right? They'll do a Saturday and a Sunday. I just don't feel like it gives my clients enough time that because like, I manage rehearsals. I'm there to help you like walk through what your wedding day is going to look like, who's where are we going to be, how are we walking down, where are we walking down, all of that stuff. I manage all of that, and that's usually happening like the day before. So if you could imagine, like if I'm at a wedding one day and then the next day I've got another another wedding, like how do I do that for them both? And so usually they're on the weekends. Again, could probably manage it if it was in the middle of the week. Come on in. So it's again, for me, part of it is really just making sure that I've got enough time for my clients. More than one a week really is not reasonable, in my opinion. So for me, that's not necessarily the same for everybody. I just like to make sure that my clients have the right attention that they deserve on it. Saw a question in the back.
Where you want it. And the other thing to also ask is, like I know with Minted, that's a really popular company online. If they address your envelopes for free, their logo is on the back of your envelope. So just something to look out for. If you're going to do it, go that kind of route.
Yeah, I think that's actually really important on the list part for sure. I have seen lists. I've received lists from people that have like Cousin Joey as the name on the list, right? Yeah, I am serious actually. Right, like Tito, little Tito. I'm not kidding, like little Tito, and you're like, I mean, we can't. Little, really, his first name? I'm gonna guess that that's not his actual name. But people do that because that's what we call them, right? Like we've got these names for people, and like we don't actually really put thought into it. But before you give your list to somebody else, check for those things, because that's probably pretty important. Like make sure that you've actually scrubbed the list. And I've said this before to everybody, like planning is not a solitary activity. Yeah. It does require multiple eyes. Like please pass that on. Like have somebody else look at the list. If you've forgotten, Cousin Joey's last name, like by all means, like feel free to ask and make some calls about what their real name is. Do not mail out an invitation that says Little Tito. Like just don't do it. All right. Any other questions? Comments? Last thoughts?
I thought would be good to bring up some of the other vendors that we have here in the space.
Oh my goodness, isn't that terrible? I am so bad.
Very important shout outs to make of some other amazing.
We do that are not, some of them not in the room. So we do have Ziggy in the back who was responsible for doing our model's hair. Thank you, Ziggy. We have Jose, our videographer, also in the back and making sure that we've got the pictures, or the video, sorry. And Claudia, see, that's why I did that, because I was looking at you. Claudia, our photographer, who also is, again, responsible. You guys, if you aren't following any of us online, please do. You will see pictures of this event as well. You'll also be able to see some video, so we will be tagged everywhere. So please do follow and like and enjoy the... Yeah, we'll bring grab it real quick because I do want to. This is a special call out, actually. Hold on, we're waiting for the reveal. We've actually got two more. Now that we thought that. Yes. So this is the beautiful dress from Jean-Ralph Turin. It's a dress designer in New Jersey. Custom dresses, by the way. So if you guys are thinking about custom dresses, like they're a fantastic one, and they're fairly local, so that's good. And also Rebecca from the Time Hotel, where we are sitting. So yeah, sorry, apologies, on the brain, trying to lame everybody. Missed a couple, but I think I got everybody now. Not a problem. What's up? I will offer it if people want. I have done that. I like to do it. I've kind of got a magic formula for making sure you've got the right dress. I'm not going to share, but if you ask me after, I'll tell you what it is. Yeah. So I will. Yeah, I do. I do also recommend that you bring a friend. Don't bring a. Yeah, and again, like I said, I like to make sure things go together. So that's why like I like to go. Even if I haven't gone, I would definitely be like, but you got to tell me which one it is. I want the make, model, where'd you get it? Who'd you get it from? I usually recommend dress shops anyway for people to go shopping at. I also understand because a lot of dress shops, you can only bring like 1 or 2 people with you. So if you really want your mom and your maid of honor to go with you, I'm not going to take their spot, right? Like I'm not going to do that. But yeah, I would if that's what you wanted, I would definitely go with you and help you make a decision that works with the rest of your wedding. Because not everybody does that either. But again, it's all choices that people can make. But I do kind of just like, I'll leave that choice up to the bride, basically, is kind of what I'm saying. But I have gone, and I'll tell you, catch me on the side, I'll tell you what my magic formula is, in case you have to go dress shopping with somebody. Yeah. Oh, sorry. One question in the back, and then we can jump to you. Yes.
I just wanted to give an input. One of the things I offer the brides when they do their trials beforehand is to also set up your fitting right after your trial so that you can go with whatever hairstyle you're thinking about doing so that you can see the whole.
The same with makeup too.
Exactly.
See, now,
Great tips.
Yeah, I like to because the look is really catered around the dress, and the bridesmaids as well is catered around their dress too. So it's good to have that visual of what you envision for the day of your wedding.
Hey, if you want a bouquet, I'll make a bouquet too.
get the whole wedding.
But that, I think, illustrates why it's a really good idea when you are working with a planner and the planner has a team. The team works together from the start, which means if your dress has certain details on it and you want that detail to show up in different spots, your designer is going to make sure it shows up. The hairstylist knows that design too, and that not necessarily the design is going to show up in the hair, but it will evoke that sentiment. The makeup will evoke the right sentiment. The flowers will evoke the right sentiment. You'll have this continuity of a vision because you are working with a team that works harmoniously together. And our purpose is to make sure that your day is joyful and as beautiful and as wonderful as you want it to be. Yeah.
Beautifully said. Rebecca, I know you had a question.
I just wanted to know, so if you wanted someone to go with you, would you take the planner or would you take the designer? If you had to pick one, so that the designer sees like the whole everything.
I mean, this is for me. I always go with. It's a good question.
It's a planner,
I bet the planner makes more sense because again, my job is to make sure I'm translating that to all of the other vendors. Okay. So if you're working with a vendor, like working with a planner, I want to know all of it,
and then
right? What's that? Yeah, and
the manager essentially.
I'm managing your event. Yeah.
And they will make sure that all of that is passed down so that everybody else gets that, knows what we're working with, knows the image, and can work on that. I mean, even from sourcing, whatever materials need to be sourced and gotten, because so many times we have in our minds that like, oh, once I pick the venue's going to handle stuff. Right. The venue handles. This is going to sound bad, but it's not bad. The venue doesn't handle. Yeah, the venue is a venue. It's a place. Right. It doesn't handle your stuff. So you need the rest of your team to handle all of your elements.
Yep. Yep. So yeah, it's definitely important to make sure that your planner for sure has all of the details that you're kind of working with. And like I said, that's what I do. I make sure that gets out to everybody who needs to know, that they know what it looks like, that I am actually making sure your stuff is getting managed in addition to your venue being booked and making sure you've got a date for your wedding, et cetera, et cetera. So all the details, that's what I'm about, right? I'm about making sure details are taken care of.
Can I ask one more question as like a bride?
Of course.
I mean, not as a, but like if I were in the bride seat, I would say right now, this all sounds awesome. This sounds pretty interesting. Man, this is going to cost me a mint. How would I do this?
So, and again, money is money. And that's why I tell everybody, you start with your budget. Like, know what that number is. Before you do anything else, talk to a planner. Talk to them anyway. Like, just find out. Like, well, what is this going to get me? And what I have found is, by the time we've talked through it, you will see that it is not so bad. I can do things that you might not be able to do or know things that you might not know because it's not what you do every day. That will help you work to your budget. That is what I do. And I'll be very upfront about it. If your budget isn't something that I can work with, I'll just tell you. Like, unfortunately, like that's not going to work. Here's why not, right? Like here's what you can expect. I'm also here to make sure that you've got the ideas to make it work, right? Like, so if you've come to me and this is what I have and this is all I have, here are some ideas that'll help you. I'm very upfront about the whole thing because my goal is to help. Like, my goal is to make sure that you can plan your wedding the way that you want it planned. So that's part of the thing. So start with the number, talk to a planner. You'll find out if that number is reasonable for what you're planning. And if it's not, like, I understand everybody's got a vision and you might want to try it anyway. I'm trying very hard to save you some time and some energy and some effort. So like I said, I go out there trying to make sure that you know what it is that you're getting into. That's my goal. Room, or the couple to enjoy their wedding day, but also to help your family enjoy it, right? Like, so if you don't have a planner, who's doing all of this stuff? Like,
it's gonna be your Aunt Sally, or maybe it's little Tito. He's taking care of it all.
And again, like I said, part of it is if you don't know and if you've never done it before, it's kind of hard. It's a little hard to know that all of these pieces had to happen. And that was really the goal of tonight, right? Is to help you guys all understand what's going into it. What do we have to do? How do we get there to the day of? So having said that, I'm going to wrap this one up. Thank you all for joining. Appreciate the questions. We are going to be hanging out for a little bit, so feel free to come ask more questions and talk. We've got our information out. There will be another bridal expo as well, and we can talk about that as well if you guys are looking for more information and more help planning. So we can talk about that as well if you haven't signed up for the next one. And with that, I will say, yeah. I didn't plug that. All right, thanks everyone.